what they're doing is they're saying, I recognize you disagree with me, but this is my truth that I'm talking. And therefore, because it's personal to me, you should do the courtesy of believing me. Thank you very much. So it's a quite condescending, sanctimonious approach, which of course originates from narcissists.
All right, we are back with the illustrious HG Tudor. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you, Eric. Thank you for inviting me onto your show again. Pleasure to be here.
It's good to see you. And now, outside the gate, I'm always exploring what is narcissism, what is this, what is that, etc. But there's always contradictions in people.
Okay.
And one that I've wondered about, and you've probably been asked 1,000 times, you don't like showing your face, but you're a narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is this contrary to itself, or is it a case that, quote, vanity isn't necessarily narcissism?
Well, I'm a good-looking chap, and in my private life, I'm quite content for people to look upon my rugged good looks. But what you've got to understand is that the primary concern that I have as a narcissistic psychopath is the essence of control. So if you think about it, I might gain control by people being able to see me. However, I do know that if people were able to see me, that would compromise my identity. The compromise of my identity would amount to a huge threat to my need for control. And therefore, the balancing act is a very simple one. Although the use of my face could assist in the assertion of control, it will definitely cause problems with control at the same time. And therefore, the outcome must be preserve my identity, maintain control that way, and I have other devices available to me, of course, to assert control over people that I'm interacting with in this medium. For instance, the very material that I produce is interesting, is insightful, is entertaining. That allows me to gain control over people. My voice is a very much a tool that I'm able to use as well. My stentorian tones as a glorious narrator. So that enables me to assert control. And of course, in a interesting way, the mystery that surrounds what does he look like? Who is he actually? That keeps people engaged as well, which also aids the process of control. So not only do I not show myself because it would be a threat to control, but not showing myself enables me to utilize other means to maintain control, and simply showing myself isn't necessary.
Interesting. You mentioned your voice, and a lot of people do compliment your voice. I
Yes.
read comments. Is this out of training, or is it just completely natural?
This is my natural voice. Admittedly, I have a more conversational style compared to a broadcast voice. So, but most people do that, and it's akin to having a telephone voice, for instance. Some people speak a little more clearly and differently when they're on the telephone. But this is my real voice. I've always spoken like this. I haven't had any voice training. I've always had a baritone sort of stroke bass voice, and have been well spoken and have enunciated what I say with a wide ranging vocabulary, etc. And I understand the power of my voice as well.
Okay. Have you done any kind of training on anything
On anything,
for
what do you mean?
presentation? For presentation, for it could be your writing. I
No,
mean, I'm assuming you
no,
went through an
I haven't
educational
undertaken
background.
any kind of media training or anything like that. No.
Interesting. Um, and then back to the control.
Mm.
I'm curious about that too. Narcissism and locus of control.
Hmm.
Now, this I could be going down the wrong path here, but I sometimes consider narcissists not accepting a locus of control, or living a life with an external locus of control, that nothing is their fault unless
Hmm.
it's something decent.
Hmm.
Can you elaborate, or am I completely off my rocker?
Well, the issue of fault drives at the heart of control. So to suggest that a narcissist is at fault brings with it accountability. Accountability is a
Mhm.
shackle, and therefore it's a shackle on control. So that is why the narcissist must never, ever be allowed to admit any kind of accountability, even where you get some kind of admission from a narcissist. It isn't genuine. Usually, you'll end up with a flat denial, or you'll end up with the blah, 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 blah apology, but, which, of course, as we all know, everything that came before the but becomes meaningless. So you end up with instances where the narcissist appears to be apologizing, appears to be accepting they've done something wrong. But if you look at it carefully and clearly, you'll find that they're not. So a common one, for instance, is to say, I'm sorry that you're upset.
Mhm.
That's not an admission. I'm sorry that you feel that way. And all those are weasel words that are being issued to dupe the recipient into thinking that the narcissist is showing some form of contrition, etc., but it's not. Accordingly, when it comes to the issue of control, there can't be any accountability, because accountability, by its very nature, shackles control, and that must not happen.
Interesting. Now, you were talking about the weasel words, and I find those infuriating and funny. The non-apology apologies,
Yes,
where it is actually even worse than not apologizing, because it's placing the blame on the other.
yes. But that's easily done, because from the narcissist perspective, the other person is at fault. You've got to remember, you see, that when you have the narcissist and the non-narcissist having an interaction, an unaware narcissist does not see it in the same way as the non-narcissist. They see it in an edited version through a distortion field. So the unaware narcissist does not do this. I know I'm at fault, but sod it, I'll accuse them anyway. What actually happens is the unaware narcissist goes, I know I'm not at fault, because the way that they see the world tells them they're not at fault. And the way that they see the world, it's the other person's fault. So when they accuse that other person, it's because they're seeing the world that way. So it's a genuine accusation that they're issuing.
Is a narcissist ever at fault?
Well, it all depends upon perspective. If you were to look at it from the narcissist perspective, the answer is no. But if you were to look at it from somebody else's perspective, you would probably get a group of people that would reach an accord and say, yes, they are at fault. So what you have is what I talk about as a majority perspective, that certain people have all evolved in a similar way, that they see the world in a similar way, that they have a similar moral outlook, and therefore that becomes the prevailing view for morals and standards and laws. And invariably, the narcissist falls foul of that, because their worldview doesn't accord with the majority one. So, although they can harness that majority worldview themselves from time to time to use as against other people, they don't see the world in a similar way. Everybody else does. So this is this concept of what is the truth? Well, the truth
Mhm.
is a matter of perspective. And generally, what becomes the truth is what is perceived by the majority of people as to what has happened. And
You
if you
make
don't
me
perceive
think
it
of
that
something.
same way, you're said to be deluded. But you're merely seeing an outcome. Because remember, whatever you see, hear, taste, touch, smell is not reality. It's an interpretation that your brain is making of external stimuli. And so what happens is your interpretation is similar to that person there, and that person there, and that person there. And that becomes that becomes the majority perspective. But the narcissist isn't. In the narcissist world, he's right. And he can't understand why those other people are saying that he's wrong, because from his perspective, he's telling the truth.
Okay, I want to dive down a little rabbit hole in this one, because I think it's interesting. While you're talking about the truth, it immediately pops into my head the latest trend of my truth. And I can't help but wonder, and you can clarify, because from what I understand, narcissism is a character disorder or whatever, a personality disorder. You're born with it. It's just there. It's hardwired in. But is it something that is trainable? Like some people say that sociopaths are created because of nature versus nurture, that it's a huge nurture problem. Can could it be said that we may be going through a societal training of narcissism?
Well, well, you can't be trained to become a narcissist when you're an adult. It's too late. So that forms in childhood. What we are seeing is a more narcissistic environment, which ultimately may cultivate more narcissists in childhood and certainly makes it easier for those who are narcissists to behave in a particular way. Where you're talking about people saying my truth, what's happening there is that there is this trend for individuals to what they're doing is they're saying, I recognize you disagree with me, but this is my truth that I'm talking, and therefore, because it's personal to me, you should do the courtesy of believing me. Thank you very much. I recognize you don't agree with me, but I'm speaking what it is from I am speaking about what I feel, what I see, and therefore you should be tolerant of that. So it's a quite condescending, sanctimonious approach, which of course originates from narcissists. Because when they say, I'm speaking my truth, that is not a narcissist going, I know I'm lying, but so I'm going to call it my truth. It is invariably an unaware narcissist who has recognized that somebody's threatening their control by saying, I don't believe you. And their way to subconsciously nullify that person's sense of control is to say, I'm speaking my truth. You should do the courtesy of accepting that and listening. Otherwise, you're not a very nice person. Show some tolerance towards me. And of course, when you get certain prominent narcissists who start talking about my truth, and what they're really saying is, although they don't realize this themselves because they're unaware, what they are really saying is, I see the world differently to you, and I'm going to tell you about how I see the world differently, and my truth is the truth, and your attempt to invalidate me is invalid in itself because this is the way that I see things, and you should accept this. And what happens when you get prominent narcissists that talk in such terms, it then bleeds into the mainstream, and people start to use it in everyday conversations, so that when somebody goes, oh, I don't believe you, oh, well, actually, I'm speaking my truth. Now, those people who use it, who aren't narcissists, know that that person is challenging them, and they might recognize that what they're saying is capable of challenge, but they feel hurt. So they use it as a means to say, well, you should let me have my opinion. What they're really saying is, this is my opinion and you should listen to me. But it gets dressed up as my truth because that sounds like it's from a higher plane, doesn't it? It sounds like when you're wielding your truth, that somehow it's got more weight to it.
Agree. What I find interesting is those who crow about quote unquote my truth, they seldom talk about your truth.
Yeah. So they're not interested in it.
No. And I'm glad to hear that it's something that has to be acquired. I do think that children are being coddled in a certain way that is helping to possibly create more narcissism
Hmm.
by giving too much credit to their opinions and thoughts that haven't been fully developed. But maybe I'm old fashioned or hardcore.
No, I think you're entirely correct. A child doesn't know their own mind, and in fact, invariably, their brain hasn't developed until they're in their mid-20s. So a lot of this comes back to, of course, with the controversy revolving around saying to a child, you can choose what gender you're going to be,
Hmm.
which is preposterous. Not only is the child incapable of understanding those concepts because they're so young, they they literally do not know their own mind, and therefore they are going to make decisions which invariably they will come and regret when they actually do know their mind. And that goes on all through their teens and into their early 20s. And that's why, in particular, with young men, you'll think, why the heck did he get on a motorbike and drive off a cliff for kicks and then ended up dead? because basically his brain hasn't formed correctly, so that he's still making rational and impulsive and stupid decisions. And it goes further back, so that what you have is that there are parents that are abrogating their own responsibilities by saying, oh, if you want to dress up as a girl or wear girls' clothes, you can do. You can do that. Then is creating an environment which could amount to the creation of a narcissist by pandering to that and
Mhm.
not providing rigid boundaries, etc. And it is a ridiculous state of affairs.
I agree. I don't mind necessarily the pretend, but I think we forget the word pretend as part of it. Like
Hmm.
if you're acknowledging, okay, you're pretending to be a doctor, fireman, nurse, whatever. You're pretending. We know
Exactly.
that we're playing a game. And I'm older, so when I grew up, I was of the understanding that I really wasn't Captain Kirk of the
Yeah.
Starship Enterprise.
Yeah.
That today I was Captain Kirk and tomorrow I could be Mr. Spock because we're
But
playing.
now, Eric, you're allowed to identify as Captain Kirk.
Well, yes, now they would say that I am Captain Kirk because I said that, and
Yeah.
to protect my feelings or thoughts or whatever, the adults are lying, in my opinion, to everybody and saying, yes, you are. And I
Mm.
think that's the problem,
Hmm.
or a big part of it. What are your thoughts on this, though? Jordan Peterson, a while back, I may misquote it because it's just, you hear things, you assimilate them. He talked about how, well, when I grew up, when he grew up, he's a bit older than I am, but we did not have as much external stimuli. We didn't have, the television, the video games, so much available to us to occupy our brain. And so then we did have to have imaginary friends and things like that. Very early on when we were developing, we might have a crazy imaginary friend who can be a dinosaur, but whatever. It's all acceptable. His theory is that some of the kids now who are, growing into furries and this and that never got a chance to develop this imagination when they were little, and now they're doing it at a highly inappropriate time. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there is force in that suggestion that there is a move away from allowing children to express imagination, and instead that people are making the decisions for them, that they can't be what they want to be, and that they um, substitute what is imagination with validation. As you made the point straight away, you can pretend to be these things. It's all part of being a child and growing up. But now it's no, no, you're not pretending. That's what you actually are. And that's dangerous.
Not to mention confusing, because just like participation trophies, they may, pull the routine and say, oh, we're going to have this, you'll call it football on your side, but soccer, football, whatever you want. We're going to play this game and we're not keeping score. What?
What's the point?
The kids are
Mm,
keeping score. In their mind, they know that one team scored 2 goals and they didn't score any.
yeah.
So we can dress it up any way we like, but that right there to me is telling them and enforcing a lie from the get-go.
Well, it is. And of course, often what's behind this are certain narcissists that get themselves in these positions where they actually think that they're kind, they think they're empathic, they think they're compassionate. And what they do is they think, by telling everybody that everybody's a winner, that everybody wins because they participated, they think that that is being kind, when in actual fact, they're enforcing an unrealistic outcome on a group of people, i.e., they are controlling them by saying, you can't make a determination as to what a win is. You're not allowed to make a determination as to the number of goals scored. I'm telling you, under the auspices of being kind and considerate, and we don't need to be competitive, because being competitive is nasty and behavior on Wall Street, and we don't want people saying lunches for wimps and all of this type of thing. And if you want a friend, get a dog. It's about we're all in this together, but in actual fact, they're not. Because what you find is with those particular individuals, many of whom are narcissists, they're very good at prescribing to everybody else how they should behave. And the minute that you criticize them, you're not allowed to do so. So everybody is allowed to express a view except when it criticizes them. And everybody has to play nice. Apart from them, they're allowed to insult people. And in effect, they are allowed to go on and suddenly score the last goal and go, I'm the winner.
Okay, I'm going to go down this route a little bit, and I'm sure that YouTube's going to love me for it. But taking that narcissistic degree, I'm very concerned about parents who enable children to make medical decisions that will affect the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually consider it a form of Munchausen syndrome by proxy.
Yes.
And why I see that is Munchausen syndrome by proxy is where a parent or a caretaker, whatever, will cause harm through any kind of external means. Could be poison, could be neglect, could be treatment. And then they draw sympathy by being this heroic figure who is caring for another individual. They're so wonderful, and they have to deal with so much. Do you think I'm off base in that comparison?
Not at all. I have actually created a couple of videos addressing that very topic and explaining how when you have that individual who is supposedly the carer and there is a situation of Munchausen by proxy, then which of course is also known as factitious disorder imposed on another these days, but I prefer Munchausen syndrome by proxy. I'm old school. Now, what have you got? You've got an individual that is not showing any emotional empathy for that child because they are inducing in that child illness and injury in order to draw attention. What is that attention? That attention is fuel. They are showing that they are seeking to control their child through illness or injury. They are trying to control medical practitioners by getting them to provide a particular diagnosis and to prescribe possibly medicine or undertake particular procedures. They're showing no accountability for their behavior. They're showing a sense of entitlement to treat the child and the medical professionals in this manner. They are also objectifying that child because they're just treating them as their tool to get to what they require. And as I've explained comprehensively in 2 videos, Munchausen syndrome by proxy is invariably the behavior of a narcissist that uses the excuse of a child's supposed illness as a means of getting fuel for themselves, controlling that child, controlling medical professionals, controlling family members. And to do so, it shows an absence of emotional empathy. And similarly, where they are allowing a child who does not know their own mind to make medical decisions themselves, particularly in relation to am I a boy, am I a girl, and the treatments associated with all of that. Once again, allowing a child to make such decisions shows an absence of emotional empathy. It shows a lack of accountability because there is a parental abrogation of responsibilities and duties towards that child. Furthermore, it is demonstrative of the fact that by allowing them to make those decisions, they are in fact actually controlling them because they want them to do that, so it garners attention, what I call fuel, for the narcissist. So not only do I see that it is the behavior where allowing children to make such decisions as Munchausen syndrome by proxy, but I also see, and I'm very firm on this point, that the majority of individuals that engage in that behavior are narcissists for the reasons that I've just explained.
Okay, interesting. Now I'm going to change directions to the ultimate, I guess, escalation of a narcissistic situation, or when their deeds, acts, lifestyle, whatever you want, catches up to them
Mm-hmm.
and there's a bit of an unraveling. Are you familiar with the Brian Laundrie, Gabby Petito case at all? It's a
I
US thing.
am, and I did a very comprehensive video series analyzing the body language and interactions of them from the body cam footage of one of the police officers whilst talking about it generally. So I think I've done about 20 videos about it.
Oh, okay. Okay, folks, you see, Eric hasn't been looking at his catalog here lately. Um, awesome. One of the things that come up is there's the question of, and I'm going to put it specifically to Brian Laundrie, whether he was a narcissist or not, because ultimately he self deleted. Now, my theory, and you can punch a hole in it, is that if a narcissist runs out of rope or room or whatever, or is completely cornered,
Hmm.
the actual act of self deletion is a narcissistic move.
It is. It is uncommon, but not unheard of for a narcissist to commit suicide. And there are two reasons why that is. First of all, the narcissist may have some comorbid condition which results in suicidal ideation and in the commission of the act. Generally speaking, the narcissist won't take their own life because the narcissism wants the narcissist to remain alive, to continue to draw fuel, etc. And of course, invariably, because the narcissist believes themselves to be the best thing since sliced bread, why on earth would they remove themselves from planet Earth? However, a narcissist that finds themselves in a fuel crisis, so that their fuel levels have dropped, possibly coupled with repeated and sustained threats to control, i.e., being backed into a corner, the ultimate method of asserting control is basic to say, I'm withdrawing from life itself. And in so doing, that preserves a sensation of control at the moment of death. And thus, most narcissists wouldn't go there, but some would do so. And with Brian Laundrie, he finds himself a wanted man. He is being pursued by the police. He knows from his family that all of that's taking place, and he disappears off into the swamp. And ultimately, he's not getting as well fueled because he's isolated, and he faces these repeated threats to control by what's going on. So ultimately, in the end, and it's of course it's not done out of a sense of guilt because a narcissist doesn't have any sense of guilt. In the end, it's essentially saying, you've all backed me into a corner. Well, I'm going to have the last laugh because I'm going to end it before you can do anything to me. So F you.
Yes, and self deletion is the ultimate thing that people cannot answer. It's the final
Yeah.
word.
Yeah. And also, at the point of doing so, a narcissist would receive what's called thought fuel at imagining the reaction of people, people being upset about their demise, people being angry that they've shuffled off this mortal coil without perhaps facing up to what they wanted them to face up to. So that provides in that narcissist's mind a sensation of not total, but some form of satisfaction alongside having nullified the threats to control, but also imagining, oh yeah, they'll all be sorry now because I've gone, etc.
Okay, so it's like that last hot shot of almost like a overdose of fuel in a sense.
Hmm.
Okay, well, I'm going to go on a more cheerful subject.
Okay.
You look at a lot of people, explore them, the way they interact with the public, and I think, people are always suggesting to you, hey, can you do this person? Can you do this person? Can you do this person?
Yeah.
Is there someone or someone's, if that's even a word, who are often considered narcissists, but you would actually say, no, they're actually not a narcissist?
The one that springs to mind, although there were mixed views about this, but when it was the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial, there were a number of people that thought Depp was a narcissist and he's not.
Mm.
So
So why
he
is that?
because he exhibits emotional empathy, which is primarily his relationship that he has with his children. So he's narcissistic, which is no surprise for an actor, because many
Mhm.
actors are narcissists or narcissistic people. Not all, but many are, because, of course, if you're going to be an actor, you need to morph into somebody else. And what do narcissists do very well? Morph into other people, show the audience, i.e., day to day people, what they want. So if you're very good at doing that naturally, then it lends itself to making a living from it. Furthermore, if you're to go and get on a stage or perform in front of a film crew or whatever it might be, you have to have fairly strong narcissistic traits of pride, of vanity, of showcasing, etc. So the acting profession attracts narcissists because of those factors. It also attracts a lot of narcissists because it is a fertile ground for the prime aims. So it allows somebody to assert lots of control over lots of people by becoming famous. You get lots of fuel by people applauding your performances, giving you awards, shouting at you as you go down the street. It allows access to lots of character traits because you're exposed to so many different and varied people. And it gives you access to lots of residual benefits. So you get fame, money, networks, a facade to manage. So it's a very attractive environment. But a lot of people thought Depp was a narcissist or is a narcissist, and he's not. I analysed him in depth last year and reached the conclusion that he is narcissistic, meaning he has limited emotional empathy, but it's there, and has very strong narcissistic traits, but he doesn't have the pathological behavior of a narcissist. So he doesn't need control. He doesn't need fuel. He doesn't need character traits and residual benefits.
Interesting. Did that surprise you?
No, it didn't surprise me in terms of the outcome. I suppose that's because I'm the one that's working through the evidence and can see. I think I did it as a live stream when I announced what he was, because I did an assessment some time ago of Amber Heard, and then I did a series, as I invariably do, about people with relation to Johnny Depp. And what I would do is, as I was examining the evidence, I'd say, well, it might mean this or it might mean that. So perhaps going in one direction or the other, so you keep people guessing. And then in the final live stream, I provided them with the conclusion. And there were some people saying, oh, he's definitely an empath. No, he's not. And there were other people saying, oh, he's definitely a narcissist. So it just goes also to show how divided opinion can be. There are some individuals where many people will say, oh, yes, that person's definitely a narcissist, or if not, they're narcissistic. But it was interesting. Of all the people that immediately spring to mind, not only is he not a narcissist, but also you had such a division of opinion at opposite ends of the spectrum.
Very interesting. So, out of curiosity, could substance abuse affect these things? Like somebody who might have narcissistic tendencies, if they get drunk or high or whatever consistently, could that tip them over the edge, so to speak, or their actions at least?
Yes, I explain to people that when one makes an assessment, you have to look at their behavior over a sustained period of time in different circumstances from different forms of evidence to make a determination. Because everybody could behave in a similar way, and in a snapshot could, for instance, be viewed as behaving like a narcissist. So let's take, for example, you go in a convenience store, Eric, and in there's a lady, and she's shouting and she's screaming and she's red faced and she's throwing tins of beans around as she's trying to jump up on the counter and steal money. Well, what are we witnessing here? It does look like she's behaving without emotional empathy for the shopkeeper and the other customers. She's showing poor boundary recognition by trying to steal. She's showing a sense of entitlement. Is she exhibiting fury? Is she using rudimentary manipulations by issuing threats and verbal violence? We might be dealing with a narcissist. Or it might be the case that this lady's husband hasn't worked for 6 months because he's unwell. She's just been told she's going to be made redundant. Her card has been declined. And therefore, those external stresses have reduced her emotional empathy, so she effectively wigs out. We don't know which one it is because we don't have enough information about her. And that snapshot, it could be either of those two instances or something else. So, for instance, you could come across somebody in the way that they're acting out. It could be because they're under the influence of drugs. So what you'd have to do is look at, what are they like when they're not taking drugs? Do you see other narcissistic indicators then? Or are they really a completely different person? And it's only when they take drugs do they behave in this particular way. So it's all about examining the behavior over that sustained period of time and taking into account that there may be certain external stresses that cause people to behave in a way which is similar to a narcissist, but doesn't mean that they are one.
Interesting. So, in the case of substance abuse, it could be said like you mentioned having to feed or fuel,
Hmm.
the brain, whatever. Well, the habit could be that thing that's being fueled, and maybe it mirrors a narcissism, but it's not necessarily the same thing. Would
Well,
that be fair?
somebody who, for instance, is taking drugs, they may well behave in a manner where they get in people's faces, so they're lacking boundary recognition. They may start talking over people. They may start being sexually provocative, showing a sense of entitlement. They may start to do stupid things such as stealing somebody's drinks or taking money, which shows a lack of accountability and an absence of emotional empathy. But the driver behind those behaviors is the fact that they are intoxicated by virtue of having taken a drug. Now, what happens is that you also have the instance that narcissists often engage in drug taking because, one, it's a fuel substitute, so it can either be a substitute for or supplement their fuel. And also, of course, the narcissist will often think that they're invincible. So this isn't going to do me any harm. They'll take it. They have no regard for the law, that it's a criminal act in certain places. So they're not bothered about that. They're not bothered about the fact that it might mean that they're up all night, so they're not fit for work the following day, because quite simply they have no emotional empathy for their boss or their colleagues or their family or such like. So often the drug taking, not all narcissists, of course, are drug takers, but many are, because not only is it a fuel substitute, but the traits that they have as being a narcissist mean that they're more likely to engage in that unlawful activity than somebody who is not.
Very interesting. So let me flip it, and I'll probably have this toward the last question to wrap it up.
Hmm.
Um, who is someone that you feel is a narcissist, but most people would be very surprised? So I guess who is the most surprising narcissist who comes to mind?
Excuse me. I
Bless you.
think probably of the ones that I have analyzed so far, and there'll always be some people who go, "Oh no, I agree with you, HG. They are a narcissist," but probably Taylor Swift. There's many people who've thought, "Oh, I don't think that she is one." No, no, no,
Hmm.
you've got that one wrong. So, off the top of my head, of the people that I've analysed, I think that's the one that surprises many people. They see her as
Hmm.
very kind, that she's very considerate towards her fans, etc. And I've seen instances where people have tried to argue by saying she's the victim of narcissist, she's not the narcissist. So I think that one would probably be the answer in that respect.
Now I'm going to throw an extreme wild card out there,
Mm.
um, and I don't know. It could go either way. Princess Diana.
She was not a narcissist.
Okay. How about Prince Charles
He is.
or King Charles? Okay.
He is.
Okay. Very interesting. And Camilla Bowles.
She is.
Hmm.
So what you have with King Charles and Queen Camilla is what I call narcissistic cementation, because people think, well, how is it if they're both narcissists that they manage to have what looks like a successful relationship? And basically, behind the scenes, there'll be instances where there are clashes, but largely the narcissism recognizes that there's more to be gained by staying together and presenting a united front to the world than there is not, so that the prime aims can be satisfied for both of them, even though the uh, even though they are both narcissists. So consequently, what you have, some instances where narcissists collide and it's tempestuous and it's an explosion, and I explain that in a couple of my videos, oddly enough, called When Narcissists Collide. But there are other instances where you get narcissists that come together and you don't see that explosive aspect to it. Another a good example of that is Bill and Hillary Clinton. They're both
Hmm.
narcissists.
No,
And
I can totally believe that.
yeah,
One of whom is charming. Sorry.
well, that's right. They're different kinds. So you've got Bill, who is an aware narcissist, what I call a greater, and Hillary, who's upper mid range, which means she's a relatively sophisticated narcissist, but she actually doesn't know what she is. And it was telling because basically her narcissism caused her to view the fact that even though he has committed acts of infidelity, she once said, there are worse things that can happen in a marriage than infidelity. Now, I think many people would say, actually, that's probably one of the worst things that can happen, that your partner is unfaithful to you. But it shows that her narcissism causes her to have a particular worldview where she won't like it, of course, because it is a threat to
Mhm.
her control, but she tolerates it. Why? Because the coupling with him provides her with so much more. And so she recognizes subconsciously that she can gain what she needs by tolerating it. And so long as he doesn't take the piss, so to speak, that she'll allow it. So that can occur. There's a similar situation in A House of Cards, the fictional series. I haven't watched the American version all the way through, but I did watch the British version all the way through a number of years
Mhm.
ago. And in that, Francis Urquhart, who becomes Francis Underwood in the American version,
Mhm.
basically his wife sanctions him having an affair with Matty Storin, the journalist. She knows that he's going to do it because it furthers their aims. And
Sure.
basically her view is, so long as you don't rub my face in it, I'll allow it. And there you have another instance of narcissistic cementation, that because an empathic person wouldn't tolerate that, but a narcissist would, because they deem it as secondary to them gaining their prime aims.
Do you know who the at least U.S. Underwood character is based upon?
In the
Li-
US, no, I don't.
Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
If you want to have some fun, look him up. I have another show called America's Untold Stories,
Yes.
and we have 3 videos on his history. I think you might find them very amusing and good material if you're ever looking for something
Okay. Well,
odd
naturally,
about a U.S. president.
I have heard of him, and I was not aware that he was sort of the inspiration for the Francis Underwood character, and sort of the American flavour of what is ostensibly a British novel, of course. But both versions are
Yeah.
very good, actually. But no, I'll have to take a look at that. Maybe it will inspire me to examine him further.
Okay, and really quickly, I'm going to push them all through, but now you've got me down a track. So, Kevin Spacey, narcissist, yes or no?
He is, and I've examined him, and there is a few videos about him also.
Okay. Back to presidents because you can't talk about one, that couple without getting the rest in there.
Mhm.
George W. Bush,
He is.
Barack Obama,
He is.
Donald J. Trump,
He is.
Joseph Biden.
He is.
Okay, so we've got a clean sweep essentially.
Exactly. And again, the environment, there's two factors why you get a lot of narcissists in politics. One, power is such an aphrodisiac to the narcissist. It allows, so governmental political power allows control to be asserted over lots of people, oodles of fuel, access to lots of character traits, and there are a huge amount of residual benefits, access to networks, facade, infamy, fame, money, so on and so forth.
I'm
So
gonna throw one
lots of
out there.
narcissists are attracted to that environment, but also because so many narcissists are attracted to it, the ones that invariably perform best within it are narcissists. You've got to be a narcissist to, not always, but a lot of the time, you've got to be a narcissist to be able to survive that environment. Anybody else just gets chewed up and spat out. And so that's why you end up with a lot of world leaders ending up being narcissists or, in some instances, psychopaths.
Okay, very interesting. I'll just throw one more out there because this guy is a question. Jimmy Carter. I don't know if you follow U.S. politics enough. He was a one-term president,
No,
more famous.
Carter wasn't a narcissist. He was empathic. He's one of the very
Okay,
rare examples of an empath getting to the top.
okay, that's what I was wondering because I
Mm.
was thinking it could be said he was a weak president, and maybe because he wasn't a narcissist. I don't know.
Well, that's right. It's often the case that when it comes to making certain decisions, you want a sophisticated narcissist there at the helm.
All right. Well, sir, thank you so much for this.
You're
Very
very
last
welcome.
question. Is there a question that you've been waiting for somebody to ask you and nobody seems to trip over it?
Oddly enough, I got asked this same thing a week or so ago by somebody else, and there isn't one that presents itself. I think most of the questions that I anticipate people will ask me, I get asked.